Thank you all for joining in today. I'm Jennifer Keller, the programming coordinator of the Westport Library, and I am excited to introduce today's best-selling authors, Rea Frey and HankPhillippi Ryan, and our moderator, Suzanne Leopold. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Before we get started, I just want to let everybody watching know that you can still order signed copies of these authors' newest books by clicking the link below until about 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So that's the little link down there right at the bottom. You can also type a question for Rea or Hank at any time through the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of your screen, and there will be time for these after the discussion. So, our authors today need very little introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Rea Frey is the author of 2 best-selling novels, Not Her Daughter and Because You're Mine, as well as 4 nonfiction tomes. She returned her knowledge of the publishing world into a business, helping others get published, and that business is called Writeway. Her newest novel, Until I Find You, is extremely recently published, and we're excited to have her here tonight. Our other author, HankPhillippi Ryan, is an award-winning best-selling thriller writer and journalist. Her newest novel, titled The First to Lie, landed in stores earlier this month, so you can read that too. Hank is also a founder of MWA University and past president of National Sisters in Crime. They will be speaking with Westport's own Suzanne Leopold, who is the creator of SuzieApproved.com, her website for sharing book reviews. She's active across many social media platforms and is also the founder of SuzieApprovedBookTours.com. I'm not really sure how these 3 make juggling their multiple hats look so easy, but hopefully we will find out tonight.
Thanks.
Hi.
And then there was
Welcome, guys. Hi. So I enjoyed both these books, and I'm going to start the discussion with having you guys talk about an overview of your novels. If Rea, you want to talk about
Sure.
Until I Find You?
Thank you. Absolutely. So in a nutshell, Until I Find You is about a blind widow, Rebecca Gray, who believes her 3-month-old son, baby Jackson, has been swapped for another child, but no one will believe her. So when the book starts, she's exhausted. She's a new mom. She's lost her husband. She's also just recently lost her mother, and she's experiencing some strange things in her home, like, you know, her son's playpen being moved, unlocked doors. She's thinking she's hearing footsteps and being followed. So she's feeling a little bit paranoid and kind of like something bad is going to happen. And again, she's not sleeping. She's not taking care of herself. And one day when she is at a park with some friends, she stands up too quickly. She faints. A friend takes her home, gets her situated. She takes a nap, and when she gets up, she hears her baby crying, and she goes upstairs, reaches in the crib, grabs him, and realizes instantly that it's not her baby. So the entire book is trying to figure out, is she mistaken and just overly paranoid and tired, or has someone actually swapped her child? And if so, where is her baby and whose baby does she have?
Let me just say that's so great. I mean, I see the people just all leaving the room now to go buy that book. It's just such a wonderful story.
Thank you.
And such a wonderful moment when you can really relate to her waking up and thinking, wait, that's not my child.
Worst nightmare ever, I think, as a mom.
Being blind and gradually going blind so people don't believe her.
Totally, exactly.
I love it. I applaud it. I just flew through that.
So did I. And I flew through yours, Hank, which is The First to Lie. Do you want to talk about your book?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Writing thrillers yes, I do. Thank you. And I'm thrilled about it. It's my 12th thriller. After all these years as a television reporter, I started writing fiction. We can talk about that later. But The First to Lie is one of those books that if you say, tell me about the book, I say, I can't because it would give it all away. So when I have a little shorthand about it, there's a thing on Twitter that says, tell about your book in 4 words. So I would say betrayal, motherhood, obsession, and revenge. Betrayal, motherhood, obsession, and revenge. And you could see how that would go together. And there's another social media thing, which is tell 5 things about your book. So, okay, I can do that. I can reveal that, which would be a devastating childhood betrayal, an undercover reporter who's in too deep, a beautiful sailboat on the Chesapeake Bay, a rich and powerful family, and an ice pick that is not used for ice. So I can tell you very quickly, it's 2 smart women facing off in a high-stakes psychological cat and mouse game who prove their truth to get revenge about a terrible betrayal. But which woman is the cat and which woman is the mouse? And that is all I can say. I don't want to give anything away.
I read that book in a day. I was at the pool and I literally read it like cover to cover.
Thank you. Thank you. It was fun to write. We can talk about that. It was fun to write, and we can talk about the process of that. But when someone reads it, that is just so gratifying. So I'm so thrilled. And we all love each other's books. That's
new, legitimately. Yeah. Right. Uh-oh. You're muted.
All right, we're going to read your lips, Susie.
Yeah, sorry, you went away for a second.
Okay, we are going to talk about it.
Yes, talk amongst yourselves for a moment.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. Oh, do you want? Okay, so well, let me just ask you, Rea, where does that first nugget of your story come from? Where was the moment that you thought, I have an idea? What was that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you just said. Like, I kept getting this reoccurring nightmare myself of hearing a baby cry and going into a nursery, picking up a baby, and it's not mine. And I had it over and over and over again. And sometimes when you have those reoccurring thoughts or ideas, you've got to follow it. So I thought that I would just take it and run, but I knew that I'd have to make that character vision impaired because a sighted person would be able to see their child.
Did you do? Oh, great. Okay, Susie, I'm just going to finish this one.
Okay.
So did your character is gradually losing her sight, which is even more suspenseful because, you root for her to be able to see something and explain something. And I remember a wonderful scene where she looks at a lake for what she knows might be the last time and takes a picture of it with her mind. Mm-hmm. But so she knows what she knows, but it's difficult for her to prove it. How did you do a lot of research into that vision element?
I did, and I kind of made her have a photographic memory for that very reason. I kind of have a photographic memory, and I also have terrible sight. So you and I have talked about this before in a previous interview, but I did do a lot of research with the Tennessee School for the Blind and talking to vision impaired people and people who gradually lose their sight, and what a different experience that is, and how they have to recall on their memories to be able to function and focus. So I knew I didn't want to make her completely blind. Otherwise, it would be a very hard story to write. It was already very challenging to write from her perspective. But what about you? Same question to you.
Well, I've been a television reporter for 43 years now. You can see I have 37 Emmys. You can see some of them behind me. I've been around for a long time. And one of the things that I've done as an investigative reporter is I've gone undercover a lot and in disguise and carrying a hidden camera. And one of the experiences I had doing that, posing as a woman who wanted to become pregnant, going to a doctor's office to see if he would tell me the truth about part of his career and about part of his record. And I went in with a hidden camera with 3 sweatshirts on and my hair up on top of my head and big glasses and not glamorous ones like you, but frumpy ones. And in my shirt was a little button cam, which was it's a camera lens the size of a button. And snaking down behind that was the wire to a camera that was in my fanny pack, and I was recording this guy, this doctor, as he was lying to me. And we got the goods, and we got the law changed, and we got an Emmy for the story. But what stuck with me about that was about disclosure and about trust and how we trust people in authority, but also about lying. I mean, I went into that doctor's office completely lying. I was lying to him. I was completely misrepresenting who I was, but out of trying to do something good. And he was lying to me out of trying to do something bad, of something that would be better for himself and not for me. I was lying for something that would be better for the world,
right?
Not for me. So I started thinking about how we're all undercover all the time. We all, I speak to you and Susie in a different way than I speak to my boss or my husband or a stranger, and how we're all undercover and we're all method acting all the time. Yeah. I wanted to do a book about how far would you go to get what you want, and would that include being someone else? And that undercover experience, that being someone else, really informed the sinister, high stakes, high pressure of that in the book.
That's an amazing story. I would just, oh my gosh. And that's so true. We are all undercover all the time. That's kind of to realize.
Susie,
you can tell that I was, well, that was like I was a totally different person losing my connection. So
yeah.
Not undercover, real.
Yeah, that's a clever trick.
My next, I was not faking it. So the next question is subject matter. You have one book that deals with a scandal surrounding a pharmaceutical company, and the other one has a protagonist with a degenerative eye disease. How did you obtain the research to write your stories? Was there anyone in particular, I'll start with you, Hank, that was helpful in writing that story?
Well, research is this really fascinating thing. Tess Gerritsen always says you can tell when an author's research slip is showing, because it means they've done all this research about medieval armor or something, and they're just going to put that all in the book because they spent, by golly, 2 hours looking that up. And so when I did a lot of research into the pharmaceutical industry, into pharmaceutical sales, into the regulations and the laws and the research and the ethical and moral calculus that goes into if a medication is really helpful to some people, but incredibly harmful to others. How do you decide, what is it that goes into that decision-making process about, is money more important or health more important, and how many people's health? And I talked to pharmaceutical salespeople about the pressure that they had and the push to sell, and doctors about how they're approached by salespeople. But then when I was writing the book, I just put that all away. I put it all into my head, and then I closed the files, closed the book, closed the research, and I just wrote a book about the people who are involved, the people who are drawn in to these decisions. Yes, a big company could be making a big decision, but each of us is the one who has to decide for us. And what could be more relatable, more poignant, more tender, more heartbreaking than a woman's desire to have a family? And that's what the book is about more. And what happens if someone is promised a family and that is taken away from them? How angry and obsessive might you be over that? So the research came first, and then it gets put away.
Yeah. And I was kind of the same way, exactly. Actually, I mean, it was very intimidating to write a character who is losing her sight when I'm not part of that community. Again, it's always been a fear in the back of my head that I could lose my sight one day because my eyesight's so terrible. But when I started doing the research, and I first started with groups of people, so the Tennessee School for the Blind, I went in there, I talked to several people. The director, Nick, really just kind of went through everything, how they function, what software they use, how they cross the street. If you have a baby, you pull the stroller instead of push it, just different little things that I wouldn't necessarily know. And then I kind of like Hank, I did all this research and then kind of tucked it away. And I actually went to the city where my book is set in Elmhurst, Illinois, because it's very easy to navigate. And I had my husband blindfold me, and we navigated the streets that Rebecca would walk. And I wanted to see what it felt like. Obviously I didn't have a stroller with me, but it was the most vulnerable feeling. But with her, you know, again, it's gradual. It's not like it's completely pitch black like it would be behind a blindfold. But I wanted to put myself in that space, and then I just kind of went along with it and let the research kind of live in the back of my head. But I did have a few vision impaired sensitivity readers to tell me like, yes, this is accurate, or no, it's not. And I don't think you can ever nail it completely, but it felt really good to represent an often underrepresented like subset of the population that so many people deal with vision loss, vision impairment. So to put them on the page and represent them on the page was really super special.
And all of us who are readers and writers, I mean, that is an especially necessary, it feels, sense to us. It's hard to imagine that. You know? And so it's such a heartbreaking situation in the first place, and really wonderful how you took that in and let us into her world so gracefully and so beautifully, with such clear understanding of it.
Thank you, Hank. I appreciate that.
Okay, so how did you become authors? I mean, was this something you dreamed of? Was this something that you developed later on? Was there just a goal, or did you just fall into it? I mean, I love this question. I love to hear the answers from authors when it's asked.
Totally. Who wants to
Rea,
take
if
that?
you want to take that first.
Sure. I'll give you the short answer, because I feel like this could be a long and varied answer for so many of us. But I grew up writing, letter writing, journals. I kept a journal every day for as long as I can remember. I have a stack of them in my garage even. But my father is a fantastic writer. He really introduced me to poetry early on. That's where I found my love. We used to write poems together that would even like win little awards, and he just fostered that love of the language for me very early. And I was always an avid reader. I think writing deals so much with just being a curious, hungry reader. So my nose was always in a book. I was always kind of writing stories. And I was very academic, got some scholarships to some good schools. And then I happened to go visit Columbia in Chicago for their creative writing program. And I fell in love with it. I was like, wait, you can write stories all day and get a degree in this? I actually started as a journalism major and then switched over and had a novel published before I graduated college that we do not speak of, because no 22-year-old should ever have a book that sees the light of day. But it was such a good learning experience about the business. I think I had this dream of being a writer, but I knew nothing of the business. I didn't know that I was being taken advantage of, but this particular publisher, I just didn't know anything. So I quickly abandoned that. Actually, I became a journalist on several death row cases. I got very involved with Illinois Coalition to Abolish State Killing and Tennessee Coalition to Abolish State Killing, and really writing for newspapers and magazines and trying my hand at writing. And then I wrote 4 nonfiction novels that, were so-so. They were traditionally published. But I always wanted to write novels. I always knew I'd come back around eventually. And it took me 10 years before I even touched fiction again after that 22-year-old flop. And that story flew out of me. I wrote it in a month and ended up getting a 2-book deal. It was kind of like this fairy tale experience, but it took a whole life of like learning and failing and doing things improperly to get there. And I think I still get a little self-conscious about it, because I'm like, who am I to not write fiction for 10 years and then think I can, construct a book when I haven't been studying this every day. But I don't know. I think I didn't give myself a plan B when I finally decided to do it. And I just didn't look back, and it's been fantastic so far. But yeah, it's been kind of the long way around to get here, but I'm glad that I'm here.
Isn't it always the long way around? I mean, how can it be a short way around? There really, everybody has a story, and it's very few people who say, I'm going to be a fiction writer, and then they do it and then they succeed. It's just not, I mean, you hear about it, I guess. I started out, I grew up in really rural Indiana. so rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library to get books. And we'd read up in the hayloft at the barn behind our house.
Sounds amazing.
I was such a loner, nerdy, little bookish, unpopular. I never had any dates or any friends. I was just by myself all the time, reading up in the hayloft. And I started with Nancy Drew, of course, and Sherlock Holmes, and then Agatha Christie, and then all the wonderful British women authors, Ngaio Marsh and Josephine Tay. And I loved the idea of solving a problem, getting to the bottom of a thing, finding the answer, being the first, making something work, that kind of thing. And I loved doing puzzles, and I was always very curious. My parents let me read anything that was on their shelves. I remember sneaking Marjorie Morningstar at one point, thinking it was going to be racy. But anyway, I decided that I would either like to be a mystery author or be a detective, because I thought it might be better to be Sherlock Holmes than to write about Sherlock Holmes. And that's why after I got out of college as a Shakespeare major, actually, sadly, to my parents' chagrin, because what are you going to do with that? Except learn about telling a story. So I got my first job as a reporter in 1970 as a radio reporter. I worked at Rolling Stone magazine. I worked on Capitol Hill for the Administrative Practice and Procedure Subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And then I got my first job in television in 1975, and I've been a reporter ever since. We've changed laws and changed lives and gotten millions of dollars in refunds and restitution and sent people to prison. And here's your answer, Susie, finally. One day when I was 55, sitting at my desk at Channel 7, I just had a really good idea for a mystery. And I knew it was a good idea. And I came home and I said to my husband, I'm going to write a book. I've got the idea for this book that I've wanted to write since I was a little girl. And he said, great, honey. Do you know how to write a book? And I'm like, how hard can it be? I've read 1 million books. I've been reading my whole life. I soon learned how hard it could be, but that turned out to be Prime Time, which won the Agatha for Best First Mystery. But I was 55, not 22.
Yeah.
First mystery, and now I'm here with my 12th book. So that's the saga. It was just timing and luck and chance and opportunity, and it just, I couldn't, and I think Rea will agree, I couldn't have made it happen. It just, the things happen when it's supposed to happen.
Yep.
And that happened, took a long enough time. I'm 70 now. I'm on my 12th book. What are you going to do? It just happens.
Yeah, I know. She's 70. Like when she said,
No way.
"You're not." No, you're not.
No, you're
not.
That's a secret.
What I asked.
Well, happiness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
That's an amazing.
And I love that we both had journalism.
Yes.
Because storytelling, that is learning how to tell a story. And whether you're making stuff up or not, it's a structure.
100%. Can I ask Hank a quick question? So if you weren't a reporter, and you weren't an author, what would you have chosen? Would you have been a detective?
I would have been a lawyer.
Me too. That's so funny.
And you too?
Yeah, me too. My parents are always like, you need to be a lawyer. Like, you're great at arguing and getting your way. Yep.
And it's the same thing, though. I mean, it's storytelling, it's persuasion, it's taking a lot of complicated stuff and making it into an entertaining story. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's interesting because my biological father was the music critic for the Chicago Daily News for years, and taught me about music and writing and reporting. And he used to, his one line that he used to say to me was, "There's always another typo." And I think about that. Yeah. But then my stepfather was a lawyer, a tough, brittle, brusque corporate lawyer. So I sort of got both of those brains as a child. The poetic, lovely father who was the music critic, and the tough, brittle stepfather. So I think all that goes into how we turn out to be who we are.
Absolutely. Amazingly put.
What was the publishing journey like for you guys? Just off the top of my head, I've been listening to your stories to get the first book published. Was it difficult?
You go ahead. You were saying that you just sent in your 22-year-old.
Oh no, I mean that was like, I don't even really consider that part of my story.
The second book came out in a month?
Well, no, so when I got published, so I got an agent at the end of 2016, and I had worked at literary agencies. I'd been doing a lot of work on the side, ghostwriting and learning about the business, like all through my 20s and 30s, like kind of learning, oh, this is how the business works. So by the time I decided to write a book, a novel, it flew out of me. It was the most out of body experience I've ever had, but I knew how to write a query letter. I actually went to Barnes and Noble and picked up like a Writer's Digest magazine, which I never buy. And it was an issue. It was like top agents, newer agents building their lists. And I went through, I found one agent that I wanted. She'd been an editor for 5 years before, which was very important to me. She was building her list. She was looking for what turned out to be not her daughter, like in that genre. I submitted it to her and then got interest from like a big agent. But I mean, I loved her. I loved her enthusiasm. She felt about the book the way I wanted it to. We took it, edited it a little bit. She shopped it. The book got in a bidding war, went to auction, and it all happened so fast. But again, it took so long to get there. And choosing between the two publishers is difficult, but my editor that I ended up going with, it was her husband's birthday, and she read that. She sat the entire day and did not move and read the book. And when it was dinner time, her husband's like, hey, it's my birthday. Are we going to go out, or are you going to read this book? And she's like, I'm going to read this book. And I was like, that's my editor. So it ended up being a kind of seamless, I don't know, it was kind of a seamless entry or re-entry into the publishing world, but I had done so much due diligence beforehand. I am so passionate about being an advocate for authors being informed, knowing what questions to ask, knowing how to read a contract, knowing how you get paid. So I asked a lot of questions, maybe sometimes too many, but it's absolutely imperative. And I mean, I've built a business around it because I'm so passionate about authors knowing what they're getting into.
You see, so many stories about the things that happen to people, all out of hope and desire, and you want your book to be published, and you'd almost do anything, and you believe anything from those horrible predatory people who will lead you astray without a bat of an eye. Susie, I'm sure you know. And talk to people who have had this kind of thing. I'm looking at you over here because you're over here on my screen.
I know. I'm like, you never know where to look.
It all looks good though.
I did it the very textbook way. I mean, I looked up how you're supposed to do it. This was back in the day that you had to type and print and send 3 chapters and a synopsis and a query letter. And send it with a stamped self-addressed envelope. And then you'd write, and you'd wait every day to see your own handwriting in the mailbox, knowing that was another rejection. Yeah. And it was interesting what happened, that I kept sending out query letters, and I kept getting no. And I thought, I love my book. I know this is good. Something is wrong maybe with my query letter.
Yep.
And I changed the letter. And everybody said yes. I mean, it was unbelievable. And every class I teach, I say, you have one sentence to capture their attention. So when I got my first agent pretty quickly after I changed my query letter. But the interesting thing about it was she was so enthusiastic. My book, Primetime, which was what we were trying to sell, she said to me, I love this book. The main character is older. It's wonderful. People are sick of 20-something girls this was back in chick lit days, 20-something girls with their first high heels and their first job and their first boyfriend. You're writing a competent, grown-up, successful, strong woman. I love this. We're going to sell this in a minute. So I said, great. And then she said, how old is she though? How old is she? And I said, I made her my age. She's 55. And my agent says, oh, that's too old. So I'm like, it's my age. But she had just told me that I was too old to be a heroine in a book. So I made my main character in those books 46. And 46, you'll be happy to know, is okay. Is a fine age. So that was my one big change that I had to make before Primetime got published. But since then, knock on wood, it's I've tried to grow and get better and challenge myself and have every book be better than the one before. You know, that's part of the fun for me.
Are you with the same agent? Did you stay with the same agent?
I didn't. After my first 4 books, after those first 4 books starring Charlotte McNally, Primetime, FaceTime, Airtime, Drive Time, I wanted to write a big thriller, a big, juicy, multi-layered, big thematic thriller. And she just didn't handle that kind of book. You know, she handled mysteries and women's fiction, but not the kind of book I wanted to write. So I said to her, you know, I love you. You're magic. You're a queen. You're the best in the world for what you do. But I need something else. I need someone else. And she said, yeah, you're smart. Go. And so it turned out. And a couple of days later, I had my agent, who I have now, and that was however many years ago. That was 9 books ago.
Good for you, though, for taking that next step.
Well, but I think that's something, if I had gone to your class, I would have known. If I had gone to your school or been with you, Rea, I would have known to do that. You know, that's the kind of
I think you got it figured out, Hank.
But that kind of thing is what you teach novice writers. You know, don't make this mistake.
Right.
You know, this is a business and you need to know how it works.
Exactly.
I mean, as Susie well knows. I mean, this is Susie knows the business inside and out.
Yep. That's not my number one tip to all writers. Like, what's advice you would give to an aspiring writer? It's like that this is a business and your book is a product to sell. And you have to know everything about that business. I mean, everything. And we don't, like, I have like PDFs on like questions authors should ask before you sign with an agent or sign with an editor, and things that you just don't really think about because you're so happy to be considered that you're not realizing, hey, this is my career and it's my choice. And I'm the one that needs to be not in control. That's not the right word, but just informed.
Equal, empowered, respected, level playing field, all those kinds of things.
Absolutely. 100%.
Susie, we're talking over you. We don't mean to do that.
Sorry.
Well, that's okay. I love it. I'm enjoying it. As long as I don't get kicked off my internet.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like you're working on your next books, who gets to look at it while you're working on it? Your friends, family, editor? Who do you trust to look at it? Beta? I mean, what's the process?
You know, I've been a television reporter for so long, and often as an investigative reporter, it's such a collaborative process along the way. At every turn, should we talk to this person? Should we interview this person? What video do we need? What documents do we need? What research should we put in? Stories get written and written and written and rewritten. And I love that process. I've learned to completely embrace the editing process. It's my favorite part. And I think, you know, if somebody else has a good idea, I'll take it. You know, it's fine. If you can help my story, I'm not about protecting my little words. I'm about having the story be as good as it can be. But when it comes to the first draft of my books, I just don't let anyone see them. It's just me and those pages. You know, I can change it along the way. I can decide, like today, I decided this is the worst book that anybody's ever written. Yep. Tomorrow I'll think, you know, there's parts of it that are marginally, but I don't want to just show it to someone and say, isn't this bad? Or what do you think about this? Because they can't know. And forgive me, they just can't know. Later, after I'm finished with my first draft and the second draft and the edited version, then I show it to an editor, a professional editor, not my editor in New York, and not a friend, but a professional person that I pay and say, tell me everything. You know, give me the bad news, because I want that, because when he tells me this works, this works, this works, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. It's not like my pal who's going to say, oh, I laughed, I cried, let's go get pizza. It's like, here is your book and we're going to make this good. And here's how you can make it better. And then I take what he says and I decide, oh, that's brilliant. And oh, not so much for me this time. And weave that back in and then send it to my editor. So I let my husband read it after my editor in New York reads it. Then he reads it. And my husband is a criminal defense attorney. So I do come to him from time to time with intricate legal problems, saying, okay, sweetheart, legal question of the day. If this would happen, what would happen after that? And so he is my consultant along the way, but to make sure that the legal parts are right. But I'm pretty protective of my book along the way. I see you nodding, Rea. Are you the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so brilliant that you hire someone before you send it to your editor. I just did that with my last book. I mean, I love editing as well. I think it's such a fun process, but it's hard sometimes to be objective with your own work. And I've never been a fan of giving my book to like I have a writing group or 10 beta readers, because you're either not going to get constructive criticism or everyone's going to say something different. I've definitely done that along the way before I turned it into my editor in the past, but this time I didn't share it with anyone. Same thing, hired an editor and then sent it into my editor. But it's funny, I talk about my book more than I let anyone read it, but with my family. So I have this crazy habit of, I have an 8-year-old daughter who I'm probably really psychologically messing up, because we go on weekly hikes. And we're talking about your book today. So like, let's talk about your book. Let's troubleshoot your book. And she comes up with she lets me talk about it. I just went on this little mountain retreat and she helps me come up with my next book idea. And I would love to. And then when I do let her read, because she does read sometimes, I'll print off a few pages. She edits, she loves to edit. She's actually one of the best people at putting commas in the right places that I've ever seen before. But once it's I get those first pass pages back, my husband does read it. He's a very slow, methodical reader, but he catches a lot of.
That's so valuable.
Yeah, and then I do let my dad. Once I get the ARCs, the advanced reader copies, he always reads it. But I believe less is more when it comes to, before your editor sees it.
Can I tell something really fast? I was in the middle of one of my books, The Wrong Girl it was. And my grandson, who was 9 at the time, you're in one of those days and you're writing. And I'm so writing. And I hear his little footsteps in the hall. And he comes in and says, Grammy, I'm really interested in what you're doing. What are you doing? So I thought, what am I going to do? He called me Grammy and he was interested. But I had to, he said, what are you writing? And I had to think about, how do I tell a 9-year-old that I'm deciding whether to kill someone in my book?
Oh, yep.
I thought to myself, well, he plays video games, he watches TV, he knows something about this, and I do. So I said, well, sweetheart, I'm trying to decide whether somebody should die. And he says, is the person a good person? And I said, yeah, pretty much. And he said, well, maybe she shouldn't die. And I said, well, but sometimes good people die. That's just how the world is, sadly. And he said, well, maybe she should have a narrow escape. So I said, yeah, narrow escape. That's phony suspense. It never was really, she got out of it. And it's sort of a cheat. I don't really like to have a narrow escape. And so he says, okay. Then he says, maybe she should have to give something up to get away.
Ooh, I mean,
thank you.
Isn't
the idea? And I honestly think he learned that from some video game where you have to give up power to save the something or other. But what a brilliant idea from the mouths of babes. And that went right in the book. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what it was. So if you want Eli to come over, anybody?
I can do a little swap. It's funny that my daughter always wants robots in my book. We have to turn them all into science fiction. They're great though. They have good ideas.
We should introduce them.
Yeah, we should. They sound like they would get along perfectly.
That's great. I'm thinking about putting robots in my book now. I need them. Anything.
Robots make everything better.
So I think I have time for one more question before we open it up to the audience questions. If you were an easier one, if you were heading on vacation, whose book would you put in your bag
So hard
to read?
It's
not easy. Rea.
Point to me. Well, I actually just went on a little vacation, and she is. I mean, I like devour her books like in a day, but I love to read in my genre. So I think that's just research. I mean, just really seeing what people are doing. I belong to the Book of the Month Club. I try to support every author that I know, but I tend to read a lot of nonfiction actually, just for my job, and I just love it. I love reading nonfiction actually when I'm writing fiction. So probably something like self-development-y, spiritual, like if I'm going on vacation, I love to learn something and then also to have an escape.
Yeah. It's so funny, Rea, because that book, that Sherry LaPena book, is exactly what I'm reading right now.
Which one? Someone we know?
Yep.
No
And
way.
it's so crazy.
You're twinning. You're twinning.
Before the new one. It's the one before the new one.
It is. I just read the new one. I just read. Did you read that one?
She's so spare, and you see like there's no big descriptions of anything. There's hardly any setting, and it's I mean there's setting of course, and someone we know as in a neighborhood. She's so spare about it, and it's really instructive. I agree with you with reading nonfiction maybe on vacation. I've just finished a book called The Radium Girls by Kate Miller. I think it's Kate Miller, about the women.
Yes.
So it's great about the women who painted.
Kate Miller, yeah.
Kate Miller. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what I said? About the women who painted the radium dials on watches and on aeronautics.
Oh my goodness.
What happened to them? And how they became the beginning of this sort of Occupational Safety and Health Administration laws in the United States. Really good book, and so well researched, and beautifully told, poignantly told. And so I'm getting ready to read The Splendid and the Vile now, so we'll see how that.
Fun.
It's funny, when you talk about reading in the genre, it's just they don't, what they don't tell you about being an author is that it kind of ruins reading the books. You know?
It totally does. No, I don't enjoy them anymore. I'm like, what is this person doing? And like, how can I, it's so interesting.
So much, they're so good that they're intimidating.
Yeah.
They're so bad that you think, I wouldn't have done that. Don't make it be the guy. It's the guy.
No, you're so right though. But it's so fun. It's so fun to dissect and just kind of peek into those worlds.
Well, I did a TED Talk recently, a TEDx talk entitled "Why I Read the End of Books First."
That's great. I think I saw that actually. Yes. What a great title. Yep.
Well, because it's instructive. If I know what happens in the end, then I can start at the beginning and see how they did it. I get emails from people saying that I just finished the first to lie and I went back to read it again to see how you did it. And I think, there's so much stuff in your book that you miss if you don't know what it is about, and then you go back and see, oh, Rea put that in there. I just didn't notice.
Do you do that with every book?
No, I didn't do it with your book. I did not. But sometimes I just think the suspense is so much that I just have to know, and then I can read it more peacefully.
The books where they toggle chapters between points of view or back and forth, sometimes I will like skip entire time. I'm like, just get me there. I just want to know. It does drive me crazy. I have like a visceral reaction to it. So I don't think I could read the ending first, but that's such a brilliant idea just from a...
Well, not for readers, not, obviously not for readers. It's only for authors.
Absolutely.
If somebody said, I read the end of the first to lie first, I would say, please don't do that.
Yeah, I don't do that.
It's fun to read it along the way, I hope. But
so before I ask Jennifer back, I wanted to thank you both, and to the audience. I'd love for you guys to buy the books, but especially review them on Amazon. Leave an excellent review. Helps the authors tremendously. Thank you, Rea, and thank you, Hank. I know, Jennifer, if you want to pull some questions from the audience.
Actually, right now, the audience is being pretty quiet. So if you have another question, you can go ahead.
the audience is being pretty quiet. That's so nice because they're riveted.
I know. If there's any questions that she was going to pull
Debbie,
up there.
did you know the end of your book before you wrote it?
That's a great question. Well, so I wrote a draft of this that was much more of it was much more of a thriller actually, and there was just like a villain and a bad. I mean, it was very kind of textbook thriller, and I was pretty happy with it. My editor swiftly was like, okay, yeah, this hits all the marks. Trash it. I want you to start over. I want this to be better. So I had to completely reconstruct it. And she wanted it a little bit more emotional. And
the same main character and the same vision problem and the same baby.
Yeah, same main character, but the reasoning behind, like, you know, the big reveal was a little bit different, but I always kind of had the same ending. And normally with books, I do see the beginning and end. It's almost like I kind of see it all in this really quick whirlwind. And then of course it changes along the way. But what about you?
I don't have a really quick whirlwind. I'm just sitting here longing for a really quick.
Well, that doesn't mean that it goes.
I got nothing, sister. I have that little idea. How far would you go to get what you want? Loyalty, childhood betrayal, a miracle drug that may or may not work. How hard? What if you knew a family secret that, you know, a secret that your family had? Would you tell it?
Yeah.
And I remember, and that's all. And I sit down and I type chapter 1 and I think, okay, what do we got? And I generally always have a first line.
Yes.
The first line of the first to lie is, lies have a complicated half-life. Yep. And that turned out to mean a lot of things. But I didn't know at the time all the things that it meant. Sure. And then I just see what happens. That's what gets me to the computer every day, is writing the next word and the next sentence and the next, I think, what's going to happen? And the only way I can find that out is by writing it. So it's a tightrope, you know, it's scary to think, you know, okay, 100,000 words to go. And I have no idea.
How long does it take you to construct a book? Because you're on a book a year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It takes well, you know, it's interesting because the people who do outlines, big outlines, take months to do those outlines and then very short time to actually write the book. So I take all that outline time and all that writing time. So it takes a full year. I mean, I think it does. I mean, I also work at Channel 7, so I'm not sitting here all day working, even with the pandemic. I'm still working at Channel 7, so I'm still kind of juggling. So another reason that it takes the full year, although I have 3 weeks to go till my deadline.
Yeah, me too, for edits due. And I'm like, I haven't even looked at them. I've not been in that creative of a space, which I think is hard when you're in a launch, you know?
Because of the launch and because of COVID, you know, everything is so weird. Just so weird. Susie, are you feeling weird and pressured and your life is different?
From COVID? Yeah. I mean, my reading is not as strong as it was. I'm distracted. If I'll jump and look at news instead of in the middle of my reading. I'm just distracted. I don't know if you guys feel that way. Are you guys making your deadline? Are you more creative or less creative? What do you find?
I'm very much less creative. Yeah. I mean, I'm with my job, I, you know, run a business for writers. So I'm giving my creativity to them and my just my time. So I'm not really filling my cup up first. That's why I just went away for a couple of days, and just having that space away from this godforsaken home, which I'm very thankful for. But I felt instantly creative, and I got an idea for my next book and like sat down and I felt so different. But I think it was removing myself from this same environment where I felt fear, anger, frustration. Like the home has kind of become the container for all of our emotions. And I think it was really important to get out of there. I'm actually thinking about buying a little A-frame tiny home and dropping it on the back of my acre lot and turning that into my writing studio, because I need to get out of my house.
Because you would be going somewhere else.
Walking the path. Right. That space is very.
Oh no, that's admitting that this is going to be like this forever. You know,
no, it is not going to be like this forever. I
hope.
What about you, Hank? Are you feeling?
I mean, I thought it was. I mean, I sit right here at this desk in Boston. This is where I write. This very place, and it's precious to me, and I love it. And it used to be like, used to feel so protected and safe. You know, I always say it's always safe inside a book. It's always safe here at my writing desk because I'm putting myself in another world. But there was I mean, as I said to my husband today, I'm right on time for this book if it's June.
Yeah.
It's just like this chunk of time got taken out of our lives. And so I'm trying to just sort of be kind to myself about it. I'll get this book done. I'll do it. My brain will come back. If I can focus myself on writing and not worry about all the extraneous things that I'm worried about, death, who's going to make dinner, all those kinds of things. I'll do it. It'll be fine. But every single one of my pals who is an author says that they have had great difficulty during this.
Completely. I mean, your mind we're already so fractured. We're already so distracted with the nature of our lives. And then this low grade anxiety that we've felt all year basically it's just heavy. And, but yeah, I think being kind to ourselves is critical right now, and just giving ourselves space when we need it.
I totally.
Can you share anything? Can you share anything about the new books that you're working on?
Oh, Hank, you go.
Right. Tell about my new book. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out where to look now. My camera has just changed, and if I look right here, am I looking at you? Anyway, well, this is all I can tell you. My book, Trust Me, is about truth. My book, The Murder List, is about justice. My book, The First to Lie, is about family. And I think the new book, if all goes as planned, is about celebrity, about privacy and celebrity and fame. And if you choose a life where you're in the spotlight, how dangerous that might be to you and to your family. I hope I think that's
great.
You do? You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything. Mine, I do not have my elevator pitch. It's one of those books that's hard to talk about, but it's called Secrets of Black House. And it's about this very kind of affluent, put together woman who builds this black house, this amazing black house on the top of a mountain. And she and her husband are going there as a last ditch effort to save their marriage. It's her daughter's last summer before college, and her daughter falls in love for the first time. There's Desi, the main character, has a secret that's been plaguing her forever. And everything is kind of threatening to come out in the sparseness of this place. And then when a tragedy occurs while there, she has to decide if she's going to reveal this secret in order to save her family, which, that's not a good hooky explanation, but I'll get it once I get those edits in. I'll work on that.
It's done except for the editing. So you're in the editing.
Yeah, I'm in the editing phase, but
fantastic.
Next month, and I haven't touched it, so
fine. Not a hard right?
It'll be fine.
Oh my gosh, thank you all so very much. Before I wrap this up, where can your fans follow you on social media?
Hank, go for it.
Oh gosh, everywhere. It's sad. That's part of the reasons I'm so behind. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, of course. Come find me at HankP Ryan. Facebook, HankPhillippi Ryan, author. My website, HankPhillippiRyan.com. If you click on contact on my website, it comes right to me. Nobody in between, no middle person. And I'll be delighted to chat with you all. I'm on 2 blogs, Career Authors, which is a blog for people who really want to make a career of being an author. And also Jungle Red, which is a wonderful chit-chatty blog with 7 other mystery authors, Jen McKinley and Reese Bowen and Deborah Crombie among them. And then also with Hannah Mary McKinnon, I do First Chapter Fun every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. We read out loud the first chapter of a book on Facebook, Instagram, live. So, and Rea, yours is coming up, isn't it?
When is November 2nd? I'm so excited. It's going to be so cool.
So come find me on all those places and hear Rea's first chapter.
Yay. I'm mostly on Instagram, actually, at Rea Frey, just ReaFrey. I do have a Facebook author page as well. Same thing, just my name, Rea Frey, reafrey.com. And then my business is Writewayco.com. Again, contacting, same thing, comes directly to me. very responsive. Love all questions, consultations, anything you got, I'm there.
Such a great spot. Wonderful. Brilliant that you do that, and so generous of you.
Thank
to
you.
do that for your authors.
Great. Thank you all so very much for your time and elucidating the whole publishing world for us. This was amazing. For those of you who are watching, you can replay this interview at any time. So if you started at the end, you can go back to the beginning at any time by logging right into the same link. And you can even share it with friends and family. So we hope that you'll do that. We also hope that you'll purchase The First to Lie and Until I Find You, or at least borrow them from your library.
Yes.
If you have purchased a book through our website, you will receive an email letting you know when it's ready for pickup at the Westport Library. And finally, for more author videos and information about upcoming events through the Westport Library, please remember to visit westportlibrary.org. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Ria. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.